I'm feeling a bit militant today, so I just wanted to get that out there. Stand up for what you believe is right. Unless you think what you believe is right is transphobic, then don't do that. And it is quite difficult to pull apart that rejection of the patriarchy and that hostility towards men in general, which is why TERFs are a thing.
Hi everyone. Didn't plan on making a video today, but I figured, hey, look at this beautiful day. I just had to share it with you. I don't know if you can see the ice forming on this river. It's just remarkable. I know it's pretty chilly today. I don't know if you can tell, but it's so cold. Anyway, one thing that's been bouncing around in my head today, yesterday, recently is the idea of detransitioning, and would I ever consider that? And to be honest, I'm looking at myself in the screen here, and I'm not wearing much makeup today, barely any in fact. And to be honest, I see myself becoming more and more beautiful than I think I ever had any right to be. Every day I look at myself in the mirror and I feel closer and closer to the person that I feel I am. It's amazing, and I know that not everybody might agree with me on that front, but I feel great. I feel amazing. And so why would I take that and consider giving it all up? And the answer is I wouldn't, not consciously. There's maybe a couple of things that might make me consider detransitioning, but it's certainly not going to be an internal issue with the transitioning process and it not living up to my expectations, because if anything, it's far exceeded what I ever thought that it could do for me, even within a year. It's crazy. So what would cause me to detransition? Well, I think for those of you who are unaware of the narrative, well, pay attention. But socially, if it ever becomes impossible for me to live a life, full stop, that might give me a cause to consider giving this up. It's possible that it could be forced upon me regardless. It could be something where I have absolutely no control in the matter. And that would be a tragedy, not just for me, but for every other transgender person in wherever it is I am. It could be a Polish decision, a European decision, a global decision. Who knows? But yeah, that's my thoughts on detransitioning, and I know that it's something that comes up quite a lot. And I do want to say at this point that for anybody who has detransitioned, I feel nothing but sympathy for you. You've obviously been through quite a lot, and I hope that you do find peace and calm and joy in your lives regardless of whatever choices you make. And I hope that you are having a good time of it. Anyway, just a quick one. I'm gonna snap back to another point in my life. I might be back at home or I might be strolling. I don't know actually what's going to come next in this video, but I'll be adding some more pictures from this stroll because it's a beautiful day.
Hey, so it's a couple of days later after that beautiful day, and as you can see, I'm back in my space because it's snowing and it's really cold outside. So I thought I'd continue this video from the comfort of the coziness of my own flat. So building on that idea of detransitioning, I wanted to walk us all back a couple of decades to the 1980s, 1990s, and actually through to the 2000s as well, where in the UK we were under this system, I guess you could call it, called Section 28. Now what's Section 28, you might be asking yourself? So if you're really super lucky and you're not like me and you didn't grow up in the UK in the 80s and 90s, Section 28 was basically a law that was put out by the British government, which basically forbade the promotion of homosexuality and most alternative lifestyles such as the transgender stuff, which meant functionally in places like schools and in the media it was forbidden from talking about how homosexuality even was a thing, because that may be perceived as promotion of that so-called lifestyle. So that meant for me, as I was growing up, there was no examples of trans people. There was no way for me to understand who I was. And so that meant that I grew up very lost, very lonely, and very afraid, because I just assumed there was something horribly wrong with me. And that brings us forwards to today, because it feels very much like this state-sanctioned censorship is going on across the pond over in the US, where we can see them removing references to transgender people, with the T and the Q being removed from places like the Stonewall Monument. So it's just the LGB reference that they make. The T and the Q are gone, and you can see the same thing on travel advice for queer people from the US as well. Trans people are being very much erased in the US, and I do fear that we'll see the same thing globally, as many people follow the US's lead on these sorts of things. So what does that mean for me? Because obviously I'm not American, I'm not in America. There's very little that I can actually do about it. Well, I think one of the things that I can do is basically this. But I think there's such power in just being able for me to go about and be myself on the daily. First of all, it creates this visibility for trans people in general. You might be able to censor us in the media. You might be able to remove us from various spaces. You might be able to tell the world that we don't exist. But if you see us out in the world, in physical places, it's kind of hard to deny that. There we are, right there in your face, in, Technicolor, surround sound, all that sort of thing. And you know what? What are we doing? We're not making demands about being in certain spaces. We're not victims. We're not being murdered. We're not doing whatever it is the media are portraying us as. We're not allowed to be out there living our lives in the media. Oh no, we are somehow either to be pitied or we are to be hated. But if I'm in IKEA, for example, buying some knickknacks and some blankets and whatnot, that seems to go against that whole narrative. It tells a story to everybody around me. I'm not a victim. I'm just a regular person like you wanting to get some salad tongs. So, just leave me be. And that does mean that I'm having to go out there and taking a risk to a certain extent. But I think my visibility is essential at times like this. It's the one thing that I have control over. And it's the one thing that I can lend my voice to in terms of that trans narrative, for whatever that means. So this is why I've made a bit of a conscious effort to be a little bit more out there, a little bit more visible, a little bit more myself, not in any kind of assertive, I demand you to call me miss sort of way. It's just a way for me to be out in the world and for people to see that we exist and to normalize our existence. And to kind of emphasize the change that can make in terms of people's perceptions and the way that people can go and live their lives on the daily. On Friday, I went out for a date with Carolina. We went to this really super nice restaurant. I'll actually link to that location in the description, and I might pop a few sort of Insta photos of that place as well, because it was really, really nice. And if you ever find yourself in Warsaw, give it a try. In that restaurant, I was visibly me. I was wearing a fairly low-key dress. I wasn't wearing anything too extravagant. I mean, you see my style. I'm not exactly going full guns on makeup and stuff, but I was there. People saw me. It was whatever. But beyond that, in that restaurant and just out on the streets of Warsaw, I saw so many gay and queer couples just out in the world. Ahead of us in the queue as we were waiting for our table in the restaurant, there was this gay couple, and they were so sweet. They had flowers. They couldn't keep their hands off each other in the queue of this restaurant. Now, for a bit of context, Poland is the bottom ranked country in the EU for LGBTQ rights. And I think it's probably earned that position because in terms of its legality, it's pretty bad. But also in terms of the social perception over gay people, it's also let's say it could do with a bit of an improvement. It wasn't that long ago when we had gay free spaces, like entire towns and villages would declare themselves gay free, and they've gone away now, thankfully, but I think that was only a couple of years ago that happened. So it just goes to show that Poland's not exactly the best place for gay people. But in these restaurants of Warsaw, we saw gay couples openly being couples in these places. And it wasn't that long ago when they would have faced stuff, whatever that means. And this is within just a few years. We've seen that shift, and it comes through that normalization of seeing them out and about, that they are not this demon entity that people might think they are, as certain politicians or as the certain narratives might suggest. They're just a loving couple. They just want to enjoy their ramen in peace, just like everybody else. And I think if my visibility can add to that shift, then that's amazing. And beyond that, as I say, as we see more and more government and state-sponsored censorship attacking trans people, then it makes it doubly important for the likes of me, people for whom it's relatively safe for me to be out, because I'm not facing any issues with my work, although, as you know, we'll see how that goes, but that's not related to anything more than them being financially in trouble. I am psychologically secure in my position. I am in a very good, strong relationship. I do have a very good network of friends and colleagues and family who will support me. So I can do this. It's not something that's going to cause me too many problems. So if I can go out and show others that it's possible, show others that trans people exist, then maybe there's going to be some impact I'll have on other mini trans folk who can't be out, who can't transition, who can't be visible. Because I really appreciated that when I was closeted and hidden and questioning and scared. There is one more thing that I want to add about this, though. There is this arrogance of those in power. They will come and they will display these examples of how they think they can wield their power. They can take away information on government websites. They can forbid things from being talked about in the media. They can own the streets in terms of what's shown on posters and in billboards, and the messages can be whatever they want it to be. And we can see the effects of this. We can see in a recent UK government poll, people's perceptions of trans people and trans rights have become worse. And this is a direct result of that propaganda. So where does that leave us? Well, I'm always mindful of the 1980s, again, section 28, and if you see survey results of people's perceptions of gay people, it would be fairly common that a large majority of people would say that homosexuality is always wrong. This was in the 80s. You know, that's not that long ago. That's within a generation's memory of time. It's a blink of an eye in terms of history and in terms of civil rights. And now, as I say, people are on the streets just living their lives just a couple of decades later. That's not to say that that journey magically happened. People have had to fight for these. People have had to push against that narrative, against that propaganda. They've had to do that through their visibility, through their voices, through their dedication, their hard work, and their perseverance. Can I be such a person? Can I retain the energy to push against that narrative? I don't know. At this point, I hope so, but I am exhausted, and it's only February. So we'll see. But for me, even being outside as me, being visible as me, that's something that I can do day to day. And I don't know, I'm not saying this is something that you need to do. I'm not saying that this is something you should do. As I said, I've got the circumstances which allow me to do this. So it's completely up to you to decide how you feel. You can contribute to all of this if you feel you even can. But I don't want you to lose hope. That's what I'm saying. I don't want you to feel that where we are now is a permanent fixture and this is how things will always be, because it can feel like we are getting to that point. It can feel like where we are now is a uniquely specific example of things, and this is new, and this is going to be permanent, and this is going to be forever. This is never the case. Things always change. So let's try to be mindful of that. Let's try to focus on what we can do today. Let's focus on our lives today, and let's look ahead to the future with a little bit of hope, with a little bit of optimism. I don't think that's naive. We can see from history that sometimes things get worse before they get better, but they do get better. And by the same token, we can't wish for that thing. We can't hope that things will just get better on their own. We might need to contribute to that somehow, however that is. And I know that's hard to hear because it feels like, oh my goodness, do I need to take some kind of responsibility? I don't know how to do this, but sometimes just living your life is enough. And I'm talking to everybody here. I'm not just talking to trans people. Just be a decent person. Stand up for what you believe is right. Unless you think what you believe is right is transphobic, then don't do that. But yeah, I don't know. I'm feeling a bit militant today, so I just wanted to get that out there. Okay, let's pivot to some life updates, if any of you care about that. Life updates. I'm still tired. I still don't know what's going on with work. It's exhausting. I wish I had some kind of resolution, some kind of clarity. I wish that they would just say, look, you're going to lose your job. You've got 3 months. Sorry, but that's how it is. Because at least then I'd have a goal. I'd have a timeline. I'd have something that I could work towards. But there isn't. I'm in this kind of nether region of I both simultaneously have and do not have a job. It's kind of like Schrodinger's redundancy. So that sucks. I ordered my glasses. For those of you who are up on my what glasses will Andy get question, and you will see, I think some of you are going to be satisfied with my choice. That I'll leave it like that. What else is going on in my world? Not a lot. Had the week off because it was Ferié, it's a winter break, so I just took the week off to relax, but I don't feel like I've relaxed. I don't feel like I've rested. I feel more tired today than I did last week. So I am actually looking forward to going back to the office tomorrow and getting back into doing something productive. As for comments of the week, it's kind of hard because I didn't get that many comments last week, which I guess it's kind of on me because the video, maybe the content didn't lend itself so much to discussion and debate. So hopefully this one will generate a few more conversations. I suppose I have to go back to somebody, they commented this week, but it's about a video that I released a few weeks ago. It's the Why I'm Hopeful for 2025 video, which I suppose is relevant to what I'm talking about today. There's a bit of a crossover between this video and that video. In their comment, they say that the manosphere has no political pull, which I think is an interesting assertion, because for me, the manosphere is very much about it's a deeply conservative kind of philosophy. That's what it's couched in. That's its kind of call to action. It's not about progressivism. It's very much about keeping things as they are. It's as conservative as you can get. So the idea that they have no political pull, yet the fact that they represent the mainstream political thought from the last, I don't know, 200-300 years, it's an interesting perspective to take. There is a conversation perhaps to be had around the relative merits of feminism and whether or not that's got equality and equity at its core. I think that there is this perception that feminism is very much anti-men and is full of hatred toward men. And it is quite difficult to pull apart that rejection of the patriarchy and that hostility towards men in general, which is why TERFs are a thing, I suppose. It's that thin line between misandry and anti-patriarchy stuff. So there is, I think, a conversation to be had there, but I think trying to pretend that people within the manosphere are neutral figures and don't have any kind of political sway is disingenuous, perhaps. Anyway, I thought that was an interesting comment, so thank you very much, Frackis Maximus 3052, for your comment from this week. It was very interesting to read what you said. Thank you very much. If you have anything that you'd like to say about today's video, if you have any thoughts about what you can do in terms of your activism, or in terms of visibility, or in terms of how other ways that we can just make being trans normal and not being seen as a bad thing, and trying to move away from that perception of trans people as angry victims, I'd be interested to hear what you think. So yeah, thanks as ever for watching to the end, all 4 of you. And I hope that you will have a wonderful week, and I will see you very, very soon. Take care.